Gary, it's great to see you today.
Same, Jason. Good to see my old friend.
Gary, let me ask you a question. You're the first Soviet-born U.S. naval officer. You spent almost 30 years in the U.S. Navy. You served mostly covering the post-Soviet space. And from 2008 to 2011, you were the NATO liaison in Moscow. So let me ask, when you today hear the Russians complaining that they were promised that NATO would never expand further east, does that match with how you remember history?
I don't remember that, and it's really pointless to say U.S. promised. U.S. firstly cannot promise on behalf of NATO. U.S. just one member out of now 31 members of NATO, so it's a joint decision. And then even if that such decision was made, as they claim in the 90s, early 90s, then let's see the agreement. Let's see the paper. This is not something that two guys at the wine store make a promise to each other to be friends forever. This is an international agreement. This is something that we do. I mean, times change, people change, situation change. So you have to have an agreement. You have to have a document that you can show. Okay, you promised this. We agreed on this. And there was an agreement. So I don't even understand things of promises. You promise. No, there is no such agreement and there is no such document. And then again, NATO is a club that accepts countries that qualify. And you can't say, oh, yeah, well, I'm not going to accept this country because it's Ukraine, because I don't like Romanians, or because I don't like Albanians, or so forth and so forth. No, if you qualify, if you worked on it, why not? Why can't you, be accepted into this club to create more security in our world? This is what NATO was created for.
So when you got to Moscow in 2008 as the NATO liaison, how was NATO? What was the relationship like with Russia back then?
Well, it was very good. As a matter of fact, it was questionable of what's the purpose of NATO, because there's no Warsaw Pact. Russia is not aggressive. Russia is being a friend. We're collaborating on many things in space, in the fight against terror, even though there are a lot of differences in it. But it seemed like we were on the friendly notes, and Russia is not communist, it's not Soviet Union anymore. It shares the same values with us, with the West. It wants to be democratic. There's free press. There's democratic institutions in place. But when Putin came and in 2008 he gave that speech, we realized, well, maybe we should wait. He's not saying very friendly things towards NATO. It kind of resembles what the Soviets were saying, rallying people that there's this enemy, for internal consumption, for political reasons, that there's an enemy, this huge enemy against us. And then, of course, his invasion into Georgia changed the entire position. Okay, now he gave a second chance to NATO. Now we said, wait, then maybe NATO should remain in place because Russia is going back to the Soviet old days. And of course, when invasion of Crimea and the war in Donbass started, then of course we already realized, okay, well now Putin saved NATO. NATO is there to stay. NATO is there to expand. NATO is to be to get stronger. So if NATO is thankful to anyone for to be its savior, it's Putin. So they should, NATO exists today because of Putin's behavior. If he would not attack his neighbors in such a way, then uncivilized and murderous ways, well, then today NATO wouldn't have been in existence. But he did that, so we have to remain. NATO is a strong alliance.
But why does Russia have such a fear, such a complex about NATO?
Well, I think it's traditional because during Soviet era, it was NATO that was the next invaders, the next axis of evil that are going to invade Russia and steal everything from Russia and enslave Russia like they weren't by their own government. But so the people were, it's like in North Korea, this huge thing. I mean, who's Russia going to fight? A meagly, weak country like Ukraine or Kazakhstan or Georgia? No, they're standing against this Goliath, NATO, that is trying to conquer the whole world and be and they're trying to be bipolar. I mean, it's by phrase, sorry, but they're trying to be inclusive Russians. They're trying to get peace in the world and so forth, speaking the same way as Hitler did. I mean, if you see what Putin says, it's the same speeches that Hitler delivered. So it was easy to have NATO as the enemy. So people inside of Russia are saying, "Oh my God, it's NATO." And here in the United States, I hear from some of the Russian immigrants or Russian tourists who are saying, "Oh, NATO is a threat. NATO is a threat." You know, they're saying that on one hand, they're complaining that they're being robbed and how police abuse them, how KGB or FSB abuses them, steals their businesses, racketeers them, and yet they're afraid of NATO. And I would say, are you afraid? What has NATO done to you? NATO has created stability in the world. And as a matter of fact, Russia in the early 90s wanted to be part of NATO. We just didn't see what the purpose of it was any longer. But the thing is, yes, it's traditionally much easier to have this huge evil thing hanging over you that only Putin can save you from that evil.
So do you think there's a day that will come that Ukraine will finally be able to join NATO?
I think, yes, I think that day will come, and hopefully it will come very, very soon, that Ukrainians will be able to beat Russians and kick them out of their country and force them to leave and maybe even break Russia into pieces. But at that point, I think it will be questionable whether Ukraine needs to join NATO. I would put a question, does NATO need to join Ukraine? Because if Ukraine could do it to this great enemy by themselves with very, very little help from NATO, then maybe NATO will need protection from evil, and Ukrainians will be able to protect NATO from it. But no, I think that it would be, it is necessary, because at that point, Ukraine has proven that it is a country that can stand its ground, that people are patriotic, dedicated, and are willing to change, willing to fight. And the soldiers that will come from the front and be part of the government, part of the parliament, will be fighting corruption and will be fighting. This is what happened to our country in the 50s and 60s. The veterans from World War II continued to fight. This is when our country became, when we had cars and refrigerators and cheap televisions. Most of the world, I mean, nobody in the world had the same. That is because of our veterans that came back from the World War II, knowing what freedom is all about. And I think this is what's going to happen to Ukraine. I'm sure that that's what will happen to Ukraine. And that is why it's going to be a very key player in the international world of freedom and independence, and share our democratic values, or be an example even of our democratic values.
Gary, that's fascinating. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your service.
Good to see you. Thank you. It's an honor to serve our country.